State probation and parole officers supervise, get this, 47,000 people that are either just out of prison or on probation.
And there are only 644 officers across the state to do the job. The state director of probation and parole says they're dealing with high turnover among the officers. This time last year, half the officers in the Lexington office had been there less than a year.
How frustrating is it to have officers leave after less than a year?
Very. Every time you get an officer that leaves, a new officer has to come in and learn everything about 100 different people. That's a daunting task.
To help us break down the news, Johnathan Hall joins us. He's the director of probation and parole for the state. Thanks for joining us. Everyone that's watched the story in the newsroom said the exact same thing. Wow, we had no idea that probation and parole officers do all this. Is that the general consensus in the communities you see?
Thanks, Brenda. Really, it is. You know, that's something very common for us. Whenever we experience somebody in the community that doesn't know probation and parole, they're very surprised about all the different things that we do. You know, that's one of the things that really makes the job of a probation and parole officer unique. It's different from most law enforcement jobs. In a lot of law enforcement jobs, you'll have just a few minutes of contact with somebody. But in probation and parole, we really have some time to develop a relationship with our clients and actually make a difference in their life.
So you have what I understand is pretty high turnover with people in probation and parole. Why do you think that is, and what can you do about it?
Well, there are several different reasons for that. You know, one of the primary reasons is at this point in time we're really trying to give our officers the resources they need to do their jobs effectively. You know, the Justice Cabinet and the Department both recognize that. We're part of the Justice Reinvestment Initiative. We're really working hard to strengthen community corrections and the Division of Probation and Parole. Another of those reasons is really the salary. You know, we start out probation and parole officers at $31,000 a year, and for everything we ask of them, you know, they do deserve a higher salary. You know, that's a big part of the turnover as well.
How would that compare to other states? Is it really low?
So when you compare us to the surrounding states, we aren't the highest, we aren't the lowest, we're somewhere in the middle. But generally speaking, you know, state government agencies with their probation and parole agencies, the salaries aren't that high compared to local law enforcement. And that's really where the draw is. You can go to another law enforcement agency within the state and make a lot more money.
And one of the big concerns and stories we've already done is on the overcrowding of jails and prisons. So we've got 25,000 almost people in prisons right now. They're coming out, which is going to make the problem even worse, right?
Yes, that's absolutely right. As you said, we've got over 12,000 people in our prisons and over 12,000 people in our county jails, almost 25,000 total, just that are state inmates. And of those, you know, over 99% at some point are going to be released, and many of them to community supervision. So we know that over time our caseloads are going to grow. We're going to need more resources, more officers. Plus, with a lot of things we're trying to do to avoid incarceration, to really hold offenders accountable without revoking their supervision, you know, we expect the population to grow in that manner too.
And especially with such a high turnover, there is concern for dangers for the community as well, we would expect.
There is, absolutely. You know, as the population grows, there's more danger to the community. That's why it's so important that we equip our officers with proper training, and they really understand what the mission is. They really understand that our job is to help offenders be successful and help them, you know, diverge from the criminal lifestyle.
It sounds like one of the things that you could sell about the job is that they have wear so many different hats that they probably don't have very many boring days. There's a lot of different things that make it an interesting and exciting career for some people.
Yes, that's absolutely true, and that's one of the biggest draws. You know, I mentioned earlier how many different things they do. One day they may be teaching programs, reentry programs. One day they may be in court. Another day they're acting as a social worker. You know, and then the next day they're arresting somebody. So there's so many different facets to the job that also makes it very rewarding. You know, every day is different, but you also know that the things you're doing are making a difference in somebody's life. And that's very lucrative for a lot of the good officers we do have.
Well, we hope this story helps them out. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And you can join the conversation by leaving your comments on WKYT.com or on our Facebook page. Let us know what you think.